It started on a calm Sunday morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Birds were singing, and everything looked peaceful, until a woman named Linda stormed down the street, clutching a clipboard like a weapon. Linda, the self-proclaimed HOA president, believed she ruled every inch of the neighborhood. But this morning, she was about to meet someone who wouldn't bow down. Across the road stood Marcus, a kind and humble man who had just moved in with his wife, Tasha. He was fixing the fence when Linda marched toward him, fuming about a supposed HOA violation. Marcus smiled politely, unaware that this simple encounter would spiral into a full-blown 911 call, and the moment she made that call, her life would never be the same again. Linda began demanding that Marcus open his gate so she could inspect his backyard. But Marcus calmly told her, "Ma'am, you don't have the authority to enter my property." That refusal lit a fire in her pride. With shaking hands, she took out her phone, muttering, "You'll regret this." Marcus stood still, wondering what kind of person calls the police over a fence. Little did he know, the one person who would answer the call was the last person Linda would ever want to talk to. Linda paced near the sidewalk, seething with indignation. In her mind, she wasn't just enforcing rules, she was protecting her neighborhood. Her voice trembled with frustration as she dialed 911, claiming that a suspicious man was refusing to cooperate. Meanwhile, Marcus went back to his work, shaking his head, knowing how easily small conflicts could be twisted. Across town, the dispatch center buzzed with routine calls, until the line connected to Tasha, Marcus's wife. She had been on shift for hours, calmly helping people through emergencies. When the voice on the other end came through, Tasha froze. She knew that tone, sharp, entitled, and dripping with superiority. "Yes, I need officers here." Immediately, Linda said. "There's a man acting aggressive at my property line." Tasha's hands tightened around her headset. That aggressive man was her husband. She stayed professional, but her heart raced, realizing how fast a simple lie could turn dangerous. She had to think fast, before this call escalated into something no one could undo. Tasha discreetly alerted her supervisor and pulled up the location. Every second felt heavier. She had handled hundreds of calls, domestic disputes, break-ins, even emergencies that ended tragically. But this time was different. This was personal. She knew her husband wasn't aggressive. She also knew what could happen if responding officers arrived expecting danger. Meanwhile, Linda stood near Marcus's gate, rehearsing her story in her head. She wanted to sound like the victim. "He refused to let me in," she whispered to herself. "He looked intimidating." She didn't realize how her words carried weight, or how dangerous they could be. Marcus noticed her pacing but stayed calm, quietly recording the encounter on his phone, just in case. Back at the dispatch center, Tasha's voice came through steady and firm. "Ma'am, please stay where you are. Officers are on their way." But behind her calm tone, she was texting her husband under the desk, warning him to go inside and stay safe. Marcus read the message from Tasha and immediately understood. Without hesitation, he stepped inside and locked the door. He didn't want confrontation, he just wanted peace. Outside, Linda saw him retreat and smirked, thinking she'd won. She didn't know that every word she had said, every tone of false fear, was being documented. As the sound of police sirens approached, neighbors peeked through their windows. Whispers spread fast. What happened? Did Marcus do something? The tension was thick, and the truth was about to come out. When the officers arrived, Linda waved them down eagerly, her voice full of false concern. "That man refused to cooperate," she said dramatically. But when the officers approached Marcus's house, one of them received a quiet radio message from dispatch, from Tasha herself. "Approach with caution. The subject is the homeowner. Situation may be a misunderstanding." The officers calmly knocked. Marcus opened the door, hands visible, voice steady. "Evening, officers. Can I help you?" They asked a few questions, and within moments, they realized the truth. His paperwork was in order, his address valid, and his tone respectful. Linda's story began to unravel. Meanwhile, Tasha stayed on the line, listening silently. Her heart finally began to slow down when she heard one of the officers say, "Everything checks out here, ma'am." But Linda wouldn't stop. "You don't understand," she shouted. "He doesn't belong here." That sentence hung in the air like poison. The officers turned toward her, realizing the truth. This wasn't about rules or HOA regulations. It was about prejudice disguised as authority. As the officers spoke firmly to Linda, her confidence began to crack. "Ma'am, there's no violation here. You've wasted emergency resources," one officer said. The neighbors who had gathered nearby started recording. Her face turned red as embarrassment replaced anger. Marcus stood quietly on his porch, not gloating, just tired. He had seen this kind of moment before, when truth finally confronted arrogance. Then, over the officer's radio, a soft voice came through, Tasha's voice. "All units, you can clear. Situation is peaceful." Linda froze, recognizing the name. "Tasha," she whispered. "Tasha Johnson." Realization hit her like lightning. That dispatcher she had spoken to earlier was Marcus's wife. The very woman who heard her lies firsthand. The next morning, Linda avoided everyone's eyes. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, not to defend her, but to apologize to Marcus and Tasha. The video from the neighbors had gone viral overnight, a quiet, powerful reminder of what happens when arrogance meets truth. Marcus stood beside his wife as she spoke calmly to the crowd, "Respect begins where judgment ends." Her words silenced the entire room. Linda couldn't even lift her head. She wasn't the queen of the neighborhood anymore, she was just a reminder of how fragile pride can be. As the day faded, Marcus and Tasha sat on their porch, watching the sunset. "You saved me today," he said softly. Tasha smiled. "No," she replied. "We saved each other." And for the first time since they moved in, peace truly returned to the neighborhood.